Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are discussing the Digital Marketing Skills Benchmark 2023.
Let's start by saying that was a bit much. It was a very enthusiastic intro, but
Came over a bit X Factor.
Well, it was good. I enjoyed it.
I needed echo. I felt
The sound engineer's sitting there like his ears are bleeding. The two exciting announcements. Well, I think they're exciting. First of all, what we're going to talk about, we do a digital marketing skills benchmark in partnership with the Chartered Institute of Marketing. Many thousands of people have been through it, and we've just done the updated version. This has been quite a long time in the build because there's a huge amount of data in there. We've really expanded it. The Chartered Institute of Marketing brought in lots of quotes from industry and so on as well. So first of all, if you want to get that, targetinternet.com/benchmark. You can download the full report. It's not gated. You can download the whole thing. You can benchmark your own skills should you want to see how you compare against it, which is quite fun. But also you can benchmark your team for free as well. And all the links are there. So targetinternet.com/benchmark. Okay, so I'm gonna read you something out, and then we're going to get into it a little bit. Bit of context. Last time we did this, end of 2021, and we did the skills benchmark, and essentially skills had gone static or backwards. So what was going on? Basically, we'd been through COVID, and people weren't going to as many training courses, they weren't going to conferences, events, and all those sorts of things as well. And essentially what happened is that skills didn't progress. Then what happened is platforms like Google and all those other places were going through and still innovating in their technologies, and people's skills weren't keeping up to date, and therefore skills were going backwards. It was a bad situation. Okay, we've now come out of that. So a little bit of a summary. So overall, it's been more positive picture over the last 2 years when compared to the period before. However, improvements made across most digital disciplines have been minor, and we're still a long way from having the level of skills that we need. The digital marketing skills gap is still very clearly an issue, and several discipline skills have only just increased above pre-pandemic levels. To say, yes, it's progressed a few percentage in some areas. I'll talk about those areas in a moment. But a lot of them have just got back to where they were before the pandemic. They haven't, it looks like they've gone up, but really compared to pre-pandemic, they haven't. This is reflective of a couple of things. It's reflective of the fact that the world is moving more and more quickly. And actually, if we just look at the last 6 months, all the AI stuff, right? Staying up to date with it is nigh on impossible. So it's getting more kind of challenging from that point of view.
It's the whole, even if you're standing still, you're moving backwards.
Yeah, that's it. Because unless you're actually trying to progress at the same pace the market is, you can't stay up to date with it as well.
It's like we need AI just to cope.
Right, well, maybe that's it. Maybe it's going to help us with this.
To deal with the complexity.
That's not a bad thing. We'll come back to that maybe. But actually, when we look at this, it can be a little bit disheartening. So you've got 100% the outer edges of this spider diagram, and then we've got where skills are, and they're kind of near the middle a little bit. But actually, you don't need to be 100%. You just need to be better than your competitors. You need to be a few steps ahead of them, have slightly better skills, so that you're just differentiating from that point of view. You need to do something better. So the ones that did well, so let's look at the stats. So social media, email, SEO, and then lead generation e-commerce, which we bundled together, have all seen reasonable improvements over the last 2 years. Usability and online advertising had improvements, but they were much smaller. Analytics, strategy, mobile, and pay-per-click have had kind of small improvements, but content marketing and marketing theory have just stayed completely static. So and we're talking between 4% improvements and 1% improvements. It's all pretty minor in there as well. What was most worrying for me, and this is one that really came out, and this is very telling, although we've seen improvements of analytics and data from 29% in 2021 through to 31% in 2023, that's still much lower than the previous peak of 35%, which happened pre-pandemic. Now, that's really reflective, in my opinion, of GA4, because what we've done in the benchmark, we've tested out analytic skills, but also specific skills to understanding GA4 and so on. So we try and keep the questions up to date. People aren't there. There's just this big skills gap, and it's really a problem. So I think the reality is that this sounds a bit worrying. There is a skills gap. If you're a training company like us, it's marvelous. But otherwise, in reality, and this is a bit of a problem. One thing I did put into the notes, though, when I was writing this up, it said it's important to note that the minor improvements we've seen have happened in an environment of increasingly rapid change. So this should reassure us that our investment in upskilling are paying dividends. However, we need to continue this investment to look at innovative ways of continuing to improve skills. this isn't just about going on a training course. This isn't just about doing some online learning. This isn't just about listening to podcasts. It's not just about listening to YouTube. It's all of these things. And it's those things in different ways for different people and different combinations. So you've got the individuals and organizations need to commit to their ongoing learning, but you've also got the organization needs to provide the learning interventions from that point of view as well. So I think that's the problem. Now, the other thing that we've done, so we've got all the data, we've done it as an overall average. We've then broken it down by industry. So you can go and see industry, how your industry compares to other industries. That can be quite interesting. We've got loads of commentary from industry about people saying, I think this is reflective of what I've seen, or I don't necessarily agree with this in my industry, and you can see what people think. But the new thing we've done is ask people, first of all, what's your confidence in social media? And then we test their knowledge. Mm-hmm. What's your confidence in SEO? And then we test their knowledge. This is the biggest worrying thing. So most concerning in the data is the gap between confident and actual skills levels across the majority of disciplines, with the exception of marketing theory, email, and lead generation. So in those areas, traditional marketing theory, email marketing, and in fact lead generation, people's confidence was pretty much aligned with where their skills are. The worst areas, and I thought this was so telling, so the worst areas were content, usability, social media, and analytics. What does that mean?
It's all the digital stuff.
It's all the stuff we're pumping out content, and we're really confident we know what we're doing, right? We're doing social media well, doing my content well, and then I'm really confident I'm good at analytics to measure it. And what's happening is I'm doing a bad job of my content. I'm not doing good stuff in social media, therefore, and I don't know how to measure it properly. Now, that's a generalization, but of all the areas, that tells us why we get so much low quality content, so much noise, no iteration, no improvements, all those kind of things.
It's amazing anybody makes any money at all.
Well, this is the thing. And
look how well everyone's doing with both hands tied behind their back.
Right.
And it makes it, with all the poor quality content there is out there, for those who are producing good quality content, it just makes it even harder to get ahead.
Well, yes and no.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no, right? There is definitely more noise you've got to stand out from, so that makes it a lot harder. There's AI-generated content getting in the way as well. But theoretically, if you do great content, it should be the algorithms reward you and you do stand out. But that's the point I was going to make, which is actually, if everyone's here, you don't need to be here. My hands are all spread out big now, by the way. You just need to be a bit better than everyone else from that point of view. So I think...
It's what Avinash said when we interviewed him.
Right.
Just suck less than you did last week.
Right. And
that's all you got to do.
And it's really true. Everything I look at everything we do and I'm constantly, it could be better. It could be better.
Yeah.
It's fine because we're always trying to make it better.
Yeah.
And we're always iterating and just tweaking and adjusting. And as long as you're doing that, you're going in the right direction from this point of view. So I think the reality is when you look at this is that it paints a bit of a dismal picture, but we know that there's a skills gap. We know, recruiting people into digital marketing is really hard, getting people with good skills. So actually, with that in mind, this is not that surprising. It's better than where it was. But when I wrote the report, what I really didn't want is people to go, it's improved, we're doing the right things. You're going in the right direction, but you're not going there fast enough. And actually, the direction's going to keep changing as well now because of all the AI stuff that's coming in and everything else as well.
Were there clearly organisations or individuals that were streets ahead of everybody else?
That's the other thing. So there's certain industries have done better. Agencies always do a bit better than everyone else as well. But what you need to be careful of is we've broken it down as well in the report into quintiles. So just to explain, right? Quintiles is how the number of people. So there's 1,000 people in a particular industry to do it. The danger is you have 1,000 people that know absolutely nothing, and then you've got 1,000 people that know everything, and you'll go, the average is we know about halfway. And that's not true because there's loads of people that absolutely use this and some people that are brilliant. So you want to see quintile, break it down into 5 bits of 20%. Where do people fit? How many people are in the top quintile? Loads. How many people are in the bottom quintile? What we're seeing is there's an awful lot of people in the bottom quintiles. Then there's a gap, and then there's a couple of people in the very, very top quintiles. So they're shifting the average up for most people. But the reality is most people are not there. So it's really important when you look at any industry, you also look at the quintile report.
We should produce a quintile-tastic badge you can display on LinkedIn.
Oh, that'd be quite nice. I'm in the top quintile.
I'm quintile-tastic.
I like quintile-tastic. We'll work on that. I like that idea.
Let's copyright and trademark that word right now.
Okay, fine. Get the domain as well. Okay, immediately. Look at the report as an average. Look at it for your industry. Look at it for your seniority. We've got it broken down by seniority. What was interesting is actually people coming in out of university and everything like that are much better informed than they used to be. And I think the universities have really now started to look at, we need to give more practical skills, more hands-on stuff. So that's really good news as well. Big problem still, and this came out last time, is senior manager level, right? Which says you're head of department, that kind of stuff. Why is that? You're not doing anymore. You're now just telling the other people that are doing. That means you won't get set on the training course. You won't spend maybe the time that you should upskilling, which means you can't ask the right questions, which means someone can show you a new GA4 report and go, look, and you're like, brilliant. Maybe it's not, right? But if you can't ask the right questions, you can't interrogate the agency, you can't do those kind of things, that's dangerous. And actually what it tells us is that everyone in our organisation needs to improve their skills. Very, very senior board level, skills have gone up slightly, but it's from a really bad base.
And it's a problem because if you're at that level, you've probably not been doing the doing for at least 3 to 5 years.
Well, at least, right? Yeah.
And so you're miles off tracking away. It fascinates me. I've had a number of CEOs from big organisations come on our intensive CIM course that we run.
Yeah.
And they're always white as a sheet at the beginning of the course because they start to realise, look, I knew it was bad, but I didn't realise my lack of knowledge was this bad.
Right.
But by the end of it, they are bouncing out of the room really excited and one of them actually came up to me after the course and shook my hand and said, thank you so much.
I now know what I don't know.
Yeah, but you've helped bridge the gap.
Yeah, it's confidence.
Yeah, and you've helped me to be able to understand a lot of this stuff that my direct reports have been struggling to explain to me because it is quite complicated and I've never had the time to get my head around. Like, he's CEO of a big company. Well, so I'm nervous as hell while it was there, as you thinking, well, how's this going to work for him? But actually, yeah, it did.
I think digital transformation, an organisation saying, where are we now? Where do we need to be to operate in this fast changing environment? One of the things we're seeing the most important need is education at a senior level, because those people need to have the confidence to ask the right questions, to challenge, to push back and see the art of the possible. And without that, it's a real challenge. So my point would be that if you're going into an environment of financial uncertainty, i.e. cost of living crisis, war in Ukraine, inflation, all those kind of things that are kind of going on, combined with rapid change generated by artificial intelligence, it's more important than ever to kind of invest in people's skills, because that's what's going to make you innovative. That's what's going to help you stay ahead of the curve. That's what's going to help you do what you're doing 5%, 2% better so you can stand out. It's really easy to cut budgets into training at this kind of stage. Now, also bearing in mind, we're a company that sells online training and face-to-face training. I would say that, but also you don't need to be expensive. There's a huge amount of stuff in YouTube. There's 300 plus episodes of this podcast. There's stuff that you can curate to your team that doesn't need to cost anything, but it's really taking the time to say, what's that stream of information I'm feeding into my team? How can we learn as a group? Can we put lunch and learns together, like book clubs, but for a podcast, whatever? There's lots of ways of doing it.
So good. I've seen some of the top end agencies do that.
Yeah,
and it's a big part of the bonus package in a way. Actually, they retain their staff a lot longer.
Yeah, and that's another thing. You will retain staff longer if you're investing in them as well. So go and download the benchmark, but also benchmark yourself or benchmark your team, targetinternet.com/benchmark. We'd love to hear any kind of joy you're having in this kind of skills benchmarking area and how you're upskilling your team, things that you've learned, things that are good and bad. So as ever, just let us know. And thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast.
Please subscribe for more videos like this and visit targetinternet.com for more free digital marketing resources.